Some significant changes could be coming to the NFL as the spring meetings are going on in Minnesota. We'll tell you about that. Plus, the Raiders and their lack of rest, a conversation that's been going on around here. We'll deep dive into that, plus more on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for May 20th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate that in a major way. The show grows each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day on the Locked On Raiders podcast YouTube page. So shout out to Ari. You can find him on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well, as many of you do, at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. And as we normally do, we'll close out the show hearing from you. Calls, texts, even a tweet. Got a really good tweet that we'll get to as well. So a lot of great feedback. We'll try to get to as much as possible coming up in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll talk about the lack of rest when it comes to the Raiders 2025 schedule. Something that I really wasn't aware of has been brought to my attention a couple times by way of the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. Even had a couple people tweet at me. Apparently, it's a breakdown from sharpfootballanalyst.com. And Warren Sharp does a fantastic job. They do a lot of stuff. It's a lot of analytical type stuff, but talking about how the Raiders, are the most rest disadvantaged team across the league. And it's a very analytical type situation and conversation, but I think there's some validity to it and definitely want to bring it up to the show because, again, it's been brought up on the podcast voicemail line. So just want to kind of deep dive, let you know where it came from, kind of give you my thoughts on that. We'll do it in segment number 2. That's after segment number 1, where we give you the news and notes of the day, as we always do. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. On Monday, the Raiders had the first day of OTAs. And that was phase 3 of the OTAs, which consists of the next 4 weeks of the programs. Teams may conduct a total of 10 days of organized team practice activity or OTAs, as we mentioned. No live contacts permitted, but 7-on-7, 9-on-7, and 11-on-11 drills are permitted. So Monday was the first day. They're off today. They'll be back in action on Wednesday and then Thursday. As a matter of fact, Wednesday, 10:30 to 12:15 is when the practice will take place. We'll hear from head coach Pete Carroll afterwards and a couple others that are available. Now, the problem for me is I have my radio show on ESPN from 9 a.m. to noon Pacific time. So I'm going to try to hustle over to the facility right after I get off the show at noon to try to get over there in time to talk to Pete Carroll. And, obviously got a chance to catch up with him on Saturday, but that had nothing to do with the team. It was just, going back and forth, exchanging a few pleasantries. So obviously this will be about the team, talking about how everything is going along so far in the organized team activities, how all 3 phases so far have gone on. Then, of course, they've got mandatory minicamp coming up at the beginning of June 10th through 12th, and that's before they break for the summer and then come back for training camp. So we'd love to catch up with Pete Carroll. It's not guaranteed that it's going to happen, but I'm definitely going to try to make that happen coming up on Wednesday, the second day of their OTAs. And again, they'll have 10 total days of organized team activities, and that should be good to follow just to see where the team is at. One of the big storylines with this Raiders team, and remember this is all voluntary, is Christian Wilkins and his health. Tashawn Reed from The Athletic, he actually joined my radio show on Monday, but he put out a piece in The Athletic talking about, is Christian Wilkins healthy? 5 questions about the Raiders as OTAs kick off. Again, that was Monday, and one of the big questions, where are Christian Wilkins and others in their rehab process? And I've seen a lot of posts from people saying that Tashawn Reed said that the walking boot is back on for Christian Wilkins, because remember, Tony Pauline, he put out the report that there's some inside the organization that are concerned about Christian Wilkins and his health, and there's probably some validity to that. It's a big man with a foot injury, but according to, and if you read the piece in The Athletic from Tashawn, he's not saying it's back on. He's saying it was put back on earlier this offseason. So what he said is, Wilkins played just 5 games last season before suffering a Jones fracture in his left foot that required surgery and knocked him out for the rest of the year. His injured foot was placed in a walking boot, but he was out of it by the end of the season. Then, earlier this offseason, his foot was placed back in a boot, according to team sources. He was back out of the boot during OTA workouts recently, but the back and forth has raised questions about his recovery process. So that's one of the storylines for this upcoming season. We've been talking about this Raiders team. We've been talking about a lot of positivity and how the defense should be better than what it was last year. And the reason why it actually ended up being a weakness of the team was because of so many injuries. Obviously, Christian Wilkins was a big one. Max Crosby was another one. Malcolm Kuntz was another one. Marcus Epps was another one. Jacorian Bennett was another one. I mean, the list goes on. Nate Hobbs was another one. The list goes on and on and on. But Christian Wilkins was the big fellow in the middle. He was the guy that they signed to the big free agent deal. So I've seen some social media posts saying, Tashawn Reed saying that Christian Wilkins' foot's back in the boot. No, he said it was put back in the boot earlier this offseason, and then during OTAs, it was back out of the boot. But again, because it's, on, off, whatever the case may be, there's going to be some type of speculation. So that's something to pay attention to, and we'll see where that goes. And I'm sure that, Pete Carroll and company aren't going to give some big medical update when we get to speak with them on Wednesday, but definitely something to ask about Christian Wilkins. And again, remember, these OTAs are all voluntary. Now, did want to talk about a couple of potential rule changes that could be coming to the NFL. They got the spring league meetings going on right now in Minnesota, Minneapolis. And so the one is obviously a big deal for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's the tush push, whatever you want to call it. Said the Packers have submitted a revised proposal to ban the tush push, prohibiting any pushing or pulling of the ball carrier anywhere on the field. NFL owners will discuss and likely vote on it this week. If the proposal passes, any push or pull of the ball carrier would result in a 10-yard penalty. And this is from Ari Mayrob from 33team.com. He'll actually join my radio show on Wednesday. He said the belief around NFL circles is that some prominent league figures, including Commissioner Roger Goodell, want the tush push ban. The last known vote count was roughly split, 16 in favor, 16 leaning no. It takes 24 votes to pass, and his prediction is it's going to get banned this week. And now he does say it's just a guess, but that's his prediction. So the tush push, do they ban it? Do they not ban it? I know some people are very adamant that they should. I think, hey, man, if you can't stop it, you can't stop it, right? And if you want to stop it, then figure out a way to actually physically stop it. And then when you do, then they'll go away from it, just like everything else, right? It was just like the Wildcat formation, right? For the longest, the Miami Dolphins did it better than anybody else. And then all of a sudden, everybody started doing it. And guess what? Everybody started going away from it, right? It's just one of those things. I think that if you want to get rid of the tush push, just stop it consistently, right? I mean, even the Buffalo Bills, they tried it with Josh Allen, and they don't run it consistently. It's literally the Philadelphia Eagles who run it the best. But we'll see what happens this week. Apparently, Roger Goodell and company don't think it's very pleasing to the eyes and the NFL viewers, so maybe that's the reason why it'll get banned. But we'll find out probably sometime this week when the NFL owners actually vote on it. Also, and this one's actually a big deal, playoff reseeding. This is something, according to Albert Breer, NFL owners will vote this week on a proposal to change the playoff seeding format where teams would be seeded strictly by regular season record rather than automatically awarding the top 4 seeds to division winners. More details. If teams have the same record, a division title will serve as the first tiebreaker, not head-to-head. After the first rounds, teams will be seeded so the number 1 seed always plays the lowest remaining seed. The NFL wants to increase late season competitiveness and excitement and reduce teams resting starters in week 17 and 18. So that's pretty interesting. Playoff reseeding. I'm okay with that. Either way, I'm good with that. I'm just saying Raiders make it there, right? Be one of the teams that are actually in consideration and this rule can affect, and then I'll really get interested in it. But that's something to pay attention to, that playoff reseeding looks like it's going to get voted on as well this week. And I mentioned Ari Mayrob from the 33team.com, good friend of the show. Again, he'll join my radio show this upcoming Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. He has this feature that he does for the 33team.com called NFL Spotlight. So he tweeted out on Monday, my guest this week on NFL Spotlight is Raiders GM John Spytek. Spytek was hired by Las Vegas this offseason. Before that, played a pivotal role in the Buccaneers front office under GM Jason Light, helping construct the Super Bowl champion and one of the NFL's most consistently successful drafting teams. Last season, no team had more homegrown players on its 53-man roster than Tampa Bay, which is a testament to their elite scouting department, including Spytek. We discuss his entire football journey, from linebacker at Michigan to young intern with the Lions to now running the show in Vegas. The full show comes out tomorrow, which is today, 5/20, and will be broadcast on YouTube and available on all podcast platforms. So you want to take a deep dive into GM John Spytek, I definitely encourage you to go read or listen to NFL Spotlight, Ari Mayrob from the 33team.com. It's on YouTube. It's wherever you find your podcast, wherever you get this podcast, you can get that as well. I just thought that was intriguing because John Spytek is a guy that's got a lot of respect around the league. And if he's able to turn this Raiders roster into one of the youngest and most productive as far as homegrown players like they did in Tampa Bay, that can only be a good thing. And I think that's what they're going for. You saw they didn't go out and get real crazy in free agency and spend a ton of money. They brought in some guys that they felt like they needed to bring in, but they're really going to try to do this thing like they did in Tampa Bay, where they turn this roster over by way of the draft and get players that can actually contribute in a major way early on for this team. So they drafted 11 players. They obviously signed a bunch of undrafted free agents. Don't be surprised if you see a lot of those 11 players that they drafted this year actually contribute their rookie season with the Raiders. I think that's nothing but a good thing. Coming up in segment number 2, the Raiders' lack of rest in 2025. This has to do with the schedule. This is something that's on sharpfootballanalysis.com. We'll break it down, talk about it in segment number 2, today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors here on the show, and that is FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. We are up to the conference finals. So you got the Knicks and the Pacers, you got the Timberwolves and OKC. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to get in the game before tip-off and live. Player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have way more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And $200 bonus bets, yeah, that can add a lot of excitement to your first $5 bet, right? As long as that hits, you can get that $200 in bonus bets. If you're new to FanDuel, perfect. It's a great time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. As I mentioned, if it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets just like that. Then you can get into all the player prop bets. You can get into the spreads. You can do whatever you want to do, right? Parlays, it don't matter. It's all you. But again, that $200 in bonus bets will go a long way. Make every moment more with FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to jump into this article that was directed to me by way of sharpfootballanalysis.com. And it's funny because this was actually, mentioned on the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line the other day. And it was, hey, Q, they're getting hit with the least amount of rest. And I was like, I'm not too sure exactly what you're talking about. I haven't really seen what you're referencing, because I'm thinking about the schedule. I'm like, man, the Raiders schedule for the first time in a long time is pretty manageable. I think that they did pretty good. But this article is out, and it's really the headline, and it's on social media. It's on the .com. No team got hit harder by the 2025 NFL schedule than the Raiders. And again, that catches my attention because I'm like, wait, hold on. We spent 3 or 4 days breaking down the schedule, and I think we all agree that, for the first time in a long time, it's not too bad. So they go on: fewest rest edge games, 1. Most rest disadvantage games, 6. Net minus 19 days of rest, which is the worst in the NFL. Early road games, short weeks, brutal setup. So what this means, and I'll just kind of go over this article. It's pretty lengthy, but I'll go over it pretty quickly. Fewest games with the rest advantage and most games with the rest disadvantage. Doesn't seem like the NFL cared too much about schedule equality when it came to the 2025 Raiders. So, all right, what does that mean? The Raiders have 5 net games with the rest disadvantage, 6 with a disadvantage, 1 with an advantage. Only one other team in NFL history has played more games in a season with a net rest disadvantage, and that was the 2024 49ers. So as I read that, and I'm not an analytical guy, I'm a guy that goes by the eye test. You know that if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that. I just feel like, okay, 2024 49ers, that was literally 1 season ago. So it feels like to me, this is going to end up becoming a trend for West Coast teams. I feel like next year you'll probably get the Seattle Seahawks will probably be in this same position. And we already know that when it comes to traveling and you're going from west to east, there's a lot of travel miles. There's a lot of, the disadvantage. We've talked about it for a long time. And even teams that travel from east to west, they don't like it either because it's such a far trip. But normally, and we talk about the Raiders and we talk about their travel miles, normally they're up there leading the league in travel miles each and every year. So this article goes on to say the Raiders rank tied for second worst in NFL history with 5 net games at a rest disadvantage. As a result, the number 1 largest net rest disadvantage is the Raiders at minus 19 days. That ranks as the number 9 largest of the last 25 years since 2000. Okay, even the Raiders' solitary game with 1 day of rest, which is week 15, sees the edge delivered slightly eroded because it is a 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff across the country in Philadelphia. So while they have a 1-day edge, they're a West Coast team playing on the road at 1 p.m. Okay, again, West traveling east. Additionally, the Raiders play 2 straight opponents in week 2 and 3 who are off mini buys. Week 1, the Chargers play on Friday against the Chiefs and thus have 2 days extra rest over the Raiders in week 2. I'll stop right there. Yeah, the Chargers play the Chiefs in week 1 in Brazil, right? So, yeah, they have a little bit extra time off, right? Because it's a Friday, and then the Raiders don't play them until Monday. They have Monday Night Football. But I'll tell you this, if I had to talk about playing a game in Brazil and then playing a week 2 game, I'd much rather, the Raiders be playing the Chargers coming off that game than playing, than the Raiders being in Brazil and having that situation happen to them. I don't think that any team that plays internationally, I don't ever think that they should play the next week. And we've seen it happen, multiple times now where a team doesn't go on a bye immediately after they do the international game. I think they should always have some time to get their body acclimated. So, yeah, I mean, it's a mini bye for the Chargers, but they're also coming back from Brazil. So I'll take that if I'm the Raiders as opposed to what the Chargers have to do. Then also it says week 2, the Commanders play on Thursday against the Packers and have 4 days extra rest over the Raiders in week 3. Okay, well, they got a week 2 game on Thursday, meaning that they have a short week. So what the Raiders have that short week, when is it? November, it's the bye week. Which is week 8. Then they play Sunday, November 2nd against the Jaguars. Then Thursday, November 6th. So they've got that short week right there, week 8, 9, and 10, right? Well, the Commanders have that in week, 2 and 3? So they have it early in the season. They got to have that quick turnaround. So, again, this is not wrong. The analytics are right, but I also take into consideration is week 2 and 3 in the regular season, right? I don't think that at that stage of the game, the rest disadvantage is so bad for the Raiders. It technically, is it a disadvantage? Sure. But at this time of the year, especially in the first 4 weeks of the season, we know what it's all like. The first 4 weeks of the season seems like, to me, it's more like preseason than it is even the regular season. Teams are still trying to figure out who they are. I'd much rather the Raiders be playing in the States all 17 games, all 18 weeks, as opposed to traveling internationally, where I thought they were going to end up playing the Chargers week 1 as opposed to the Chiefs. I was so glad that Kansas City got that game instead of the Raiders. Then it goes on to say in this article that week 3 game not only features the Commanders off a Thursday game, but the Raiders off a Monday game. So it's a long week versus short week, plus 4 rest edge, and the game is on the road in Washington with another early 1 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. Okay, Monday night game, then you have to turn around and have a Sunday night game. I get it. Again, it's early in the season. I don't really think it's that bad. There's nothing wrong about this article. It's absolutely 100% correct. But this is kind of where you look at the analytics and say, yeah, but, what is this team really dealing with? If anything, we all know that teams are what? Normally the healthiest early in the season, as opposed to dealing with this kind of turnaround late in the season. I still think weeks 8 through 14 are very favorable for rest. When you want to talk about just strictly rest for the Raiders, I think they have a very manageable schedule, weeks 8 through 14. Again, the bye week is week 8. They're at home week 9 against Jacksonville. They do have a short turnaround, Denver. That's a little tough. That's in week 10. And then, boom, home for week 11 against the Cowboys. Home for week 12 against the Browns. Down to L.A. in week 13 against the Chargers. And back home against Denver in week 14. If there's anything there, I feel like that's a pretty good advantage, a little stretch. Again, the games aren't easy. Denver's tough. Cowboys are tough. Chargers are tough. Broncos, again, they're tough games, right? You have playoff teams there scattered in those games. But as far as just strictly rest, I think that's okay. Again, for everyone that's bringing it up and talking about it and reading it and, screaming foul, like, I get it, but I still don't think it's as bad as it's making it out to seem. It goes on in this article to say, overall, the Raiders rank number 32 in net rest, number 32 in my rest and prep variables. And on top of that, they also play 2 short week road games in Washington week 3 off Monday Night Football and Denver week 10 on Thursday. Obviously, we brought up the Denver game. There's a pocket of winnable games from both a strength of opponent and rest edge perspectives between week 4 and 9, but it's a tricky start and a brutal end for the Raiders from both a strength of opponent and rest edge perspective. So, I mean, again, there's good, there's bad, there's maybe a little bit not so favored, but I look at this schedule, man, and just looking up and down it, I just think it's very manageable. They don't have weeks where they're back-to-back on the East Coast. I just think that it's one of the better schedules that they've had in a long time. One game that's a cold weather game that's at December 14th at the Eagles that's, been mentioned before. I mean, it's not to me, it doesn't seem like it's that bad. And I just think at this stage of the game, and I know we have the analytics that help out and suggest things, even like in-game management, when people start leaning on the analytics, and I never really do that. I always just kind of go with the gut feeling. I don't want to discredit analytics at all because I know they're so important, and I know that this has a lot of great legs to stand on. So, again, not trying to put poo on it. I'm just trying to look at it from my angle as well. Sometimes you just got to go play the games. The Raiders, in my opinion, have had way tougher schedules than this one in the past. Games where they've been on the road for like 5 straight weeks, going to international, coming back, playing somewhere else on the road. There's been times where they've had to stay out east because they've had brutal games. Like I think that these, if anything, is going to put them in the best position possible to have success this year. Would it be nice to have a few more games, at home in a row as opposed to just the 2 that they have later in the season? Sure. Right. And then, of course, they close out the season, Giants and Chiefs. And, they're talking about in this article that the way that they close out is tough. The Eagles and Texans, absolutely. Playoff teams, division champions, whatever. That's who those are. The Giants, who knows who's even playing quarterback? Who knows who their head coach is at that stage of the game? You want to talk about a brutal schedule? Go look at the Giants' schedule. Their first 3 or 4 weeks are brutal. They might have their head coach fired by week 4. And then the Chiefs in week 18, who knows what that game's going to play for and mean at that stage of the game. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can look at it. I think there's a lot of ways that we could break this schedule down. But ultimately, I don't think it's quite as bad as it's being made to be. And honestly, I think it's actually pretty good for the silver and black. And I know, like I said, there's so many different ways to look at it. I'm not trying to discredit anyone who's an analytical type person. I'm just not. And so when I look at it, I'll say, yeah, you know what? These factors are all factors, but I feel like they're a minor factor to the real, part of it, which is get out there, play the games, and go win a lot of games, right? Because you have an opportunity, especially with a team that looks like they could be really good. But that's what I got for you for segment number 2, today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Coming up in segment number 3, your thoughts, your calls and texts, even a tweet, 707-654-4693 at your boy Q254 or at RA Produces. That's coming up as we close up the show, today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Calls, texts, tweets, all that. We're going to close out the show hearing from you. Of course, the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line is 707-654-4693 and at your boy Q254 at RA Produces on Twitter. And that's where this one comes from, at Las Vegas Tommy. My question is, with our first 4 fixtures being tough games against good teams and one being an AFC West matchup, how do you think we'll fare after these 4 games and in the AFC West division altogether? Want to shout out the UK Raiders fantasy group, boys, too. Raiders, thanks. That's from Las Vegas Tommy. And Tommy, thanks for the tweet. I do appreciate you. It's good to hear from you. Let's see. Let's take a look at the games. So you got the Patriots. I think that should be a W, even though they're going to be a lot better under Mike Vrabel. But I think that they have a chance to start the season strong on the road, beating a New England Patriots team. That Monday night game against the Chargers at the house, it's going to be a tough one because, like you said, it's an AFC West opponent. It's a rivalry between Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh. Obviously, the Chargers a year ago were a playoff team. So that one's going to be tough. The Commanders is going to be tough. They are 1 game away from the Super Bowl. And then the 4th game is the Bears at home. I think they win that one. I think that, realistically, they go 2-2 in their first 4 games. And I think that that's fair. I had 4 wins in the first 7. So I have them winning the Patriots game, the Bears game, the Colts game, and the Titans. So Bears, Colts, Titans are back-to-back-to-back. So that's not bad, right? 4 wins in the first 7. I think that everyone would take that. As far as the AFC West goes, man, it's going to be wide open. I've said it many times. I think the Chiefs are going to take a step back. They are going to probably not be as healthy as they were last year, and I'm sure they're not going to win as many one-score games as they did a year ago, right? Normally that works itself out. Those one-score games in particular is just a math problem, right? I always say I'm not a big analytical guy, but that's actually the analytic side of it that I do pay attention to because the Raiders were victims of that in 2021. Remember, they won all those one-score games, found a way to make the playoffs, and the next year they couldn't buy a one-score game. And I was like, what happened? Well, as I took a deep dive into it, it was the analytics side of things. So I don't know. They very well could end up being 4th in the AFC West. I have them at 8 wins. They easily could be at 10. I think anywhere between 8 to 10 wins obviously is a successful season. 10 is a challenge for the playoffs. 8 is, all right, you're going in the right direction. You doubled what you did in 2024. So I'll just say I think they end up 3rd or 4th in the AFC West. I don't think that they're challenging for the division title in year 1. Maybe they end up in the second spot. Who knows? But it's a tough division, man. It's one of the toughest divisions in football. Thanks so much for that tweet. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Darren from the 203, calling to talk about the different platforms that he listens to me and Ari and what it means to him in a card show headed to Bristol at the end of the month. Here he is, Darren from the 203.
Hey, Q, it's Darren calling from the 203. A quick one, probably not, but a quick one, and it's just a note of appreciation, like a genuine note of appreciation for you and your show and Unnecessary Roughness, and also for Ari for helping put everything together and make it all happen. I can't speak for everybody, but I spend like 2 to 4 hours most days with listening to Q. So, it's not like, I'm not thinking like a parasocial relationship or anything like that, but it's nice to be able to have that as like a consistent like thing, part of my life. I really appreciate it. So like I'm a family therapist and I left like a really rough session. Not because it was like emotionally intense, but because I'm not going to say anything on the off chance that anyone happens to find this and it happens on the radio. But point stands, if it was a rough session and I was leaving and I was like, man, I wish that it was 6 o'clock so that I can listen to the first hour of Unnecessary Roughness. So yeah, appreciate you. Sidebar, I doubt it, but if you happen to be in Bristol, Connecticut on May 31st, there will be a card show at a hotel. I don't know the specific hotel, but at a hotel by ESPN. And your boy will be vending there. So if you happen to be in the area or happen to know anyone in the area that likes cards, send them in and tell them to look for the 5'8" white dude with a beard and curly hair and tell them that Q sent you. That's all. Appreciate you deeply, man. You're a regular part of my day. And yeah, shout out you, shout out to Ari, and that's that.
Darren, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And thanks for the compliments, really, and letting us know what the show means to you. And just it's funny when you say that, it reminds me of when the pandemic was going on. Of course, nobody wants to remember the pandemic back in 2020, right? But I never missed a day of work at ESPN Central Texas, and really never missed a day of work here either on the Locked On Raiders podcast. But I remember in particular when it came to my radio show, I was joking with my dad, and I was like, well, I guess I'm essential. And he, and kind of laughed about it. He's like, no, you actually are. People have no idea what's going on in the world right now. They don't know who's talking about what and who's accurate and who's not. They don't know what to believe. And so for 3 hours, they get to tune into your radio show, even though there's not really sports to talk about. And you guys are, entertaining. You guys are an escape for 3 hours. And so it took him to say that out loud for me to really understand the impact that the show could have on the daily. And then I have to put my own, trials and tribulations on the test and realize that, hey, the podcast, my radio shows, this, that, and the other has helped me as well. Like in times when I'm not feeling my best, I'm not, like mentally or even physically not feeling my best, but to be able to get behind the mic and do this show for 35 or so minutes, whatever the case may be, and go do a 3-hour radio show or a couple of them, it's like an escape for me as well, where I don't have to worry about anything except for talking about sports and having fun and getting some good laughs in. So it helps me as well. So to hear that from you is awesome. So thanks so much for that. I do appreciate you. And you're right, I will not be in Bristol, Connecticut at the end of the month. Now, that hotel that you're talking about, if it's near ESPN, it's probably Doubletree. It's literally right across the street from ESPN. That's where they always put us up in hotels when they bring us to town. The multiple times that I've been there, that's where I've stayed. And it's literally, if I had to walk there, I don't want to, but if I had to walk there, I could. But no, I'm not going to be there. But I guess if anyone's going to be there and they're interested in cards, Darren's going to be at the card show. So go check him out. So thanks so much for that call. Do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from MC Raider in Montana. Said, what's up, Q? MC Raider fan from Montana. First off, I'm excited for this season more than usual simply because of our Bobcat alum, Tommy Mellott, going to our favorite team in the Raiders. Couldn't be more proud. Next, you spoke about the offense taking the next step a while back and whether or not they could average one more touchdown per game. What if the defense did the same, but averaged 7 less points per game as well? with this schedule we have, if both sides of the ball can improve by a single touchdown per game, this could be a team that opens some eyes. I know it's a lot bigger ask than just saying, hey, it's just a single touchdown. But provided we stay healthy, I think we have the talent to do it. And I think our coaching staff is in a better position to help the players achieve that than in years past. I know we all need to be realistic with expectations, but I, along with so many other fans, feel this season's direction and focus just feels different than in years past. Hoping this is the shift in winning culture we've been waiting for so long. Love the show. Keep up the great work. Go Raiders. That's MC Raider in Montana. And I know there's one thing that you hit on the head, that this feels different. It does. And I hate to say those words because I know I've said those words before and it's come back to bite me in the backside and it hasn't been different. And people at the end of the day say, oh, same old Raiders. You fell for it. You fell for the banana in the tailpipe. But this does feel different. That's why I referenced on Monday's show, even talking to Sandra Douglas Morgan when she said, hey, even in the building, everything feels really positive. Now, again, they've got to go and make that translate into wins on the field. But she's like, ever since, things have changed and the new staff, new minority ownership, everybody's been coming in, everything feels a lot differently. So, hopefully that you're right. Hopefully I'm right. Hopefully everyone's right that this is different. And like you said, it starts the winning culture. As far as shaving off a touchdown off the score that the defense gave up, every game per game, it's possible. It is tougher than it sounds. It's possible, but they've got to have their guys all fully healthy. They're probably going to depend on some young guys. And I think there's still some questions on defense. I think the defensive line is their strength, but the linebackers are some questions. Corners are a question, like who's going to be across from Ja'Cory Bennett? Can he stay healthy all year? Just different questions that they're going to have, and they're going to have to be put to the test. The good thing is it's only May, and they still have time to help build this thing and put together the right team and get them out there and get the right practice squad. And I've said it before, I think they're one to two more drafts away from having the quality depth that they're really going to need. And the reason why they don't have it is because they missed on so many drafts in the past. So thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. And yeah, touchdown Tommy Malott, man. He's a guy that a lot of folks are really excited about. Thanks for your text again. Up next, got a call from John B. He's calling to talk about the Raiders, Geno Smith, Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, more of the draft picks and how the team is being put together. Here he is, John B.
Your boy Q, 254. This is John B. I was trying to be a year before it happened, and I didn't see this, but I see it like this. You got a top half of the NFL starting quarterback. You know what I mean? If they were to go to the playoffs against any quarterback in the AFC West, in the AFC period, he could hold his own. You bring in Pete Carroll, offensive coordinator. You got a Pro Bowl. You got the best tight end in the game, and you bring in the best running back out of college to play together with a veteran quarterback, a good veteran quarterback in his prime. Oh, by the way, you got a 1,000-yard receiver. And what I know about the draft is the first 3 rounds, we call it the NFL 100. The NFL 100 should be starting unless there's a starter in front of you, like left tackle, defensive end, linebacker, wide receiver. You know what I'm saying? So the top 100 is starting. The Raiders got Genty, Best, and Porter in the top 3 rounds. They're starting. And if you get 2 rookies to start with Jackson Powell-Johnson, Glaze, and Colton, if they starting, they running. The Raiders gonna look real good this year, man. I'm a Raider man, right? But I see 10 wins. Everybody in the division win 10 wins or better. Real talk. What you think about it?
Every time I hear John B., all I can think of is, the white baby face, right? John B., man, his smooth sounding R&B vocals. But thanks for the optimistic call. Appreciate you. I think the Raiders do have a chance to be good, right? And I think they will. Now, what does that mean as far as wins, losses? I don't know. I'm not going to say that every team in the AFC West is going to win 10 games. I feel like that's really rich. And, look, we said that when Devontae was brought into the organization. Remember when Dave Ziegler traded for Devontae? Everyone's like, man, the AFC West is going to be the toughest division in football. Every team might make the playoffs. Something always happens. A team gets hit with injuries. A team loses a lot of those one-score games. Like, something always goes wrong. I don't expect all 4 teams to be a double-digit win team. Now, look, you play 11 games that are outside of your division, so I guess technically you could and still not have a great record against your division, but ultimately, man, for the Raiders to have success in 2025 and beyond, they need to start having success in the division. They need to start winning games. They need to start beating Kansas City at home. They need to start, having their win streak against Denver again. They can't get swept by the AFC West like they did a year ago. They just can't. They've got to find a way to get back to winning ways, first in the division and obviously AFC conference games as well. So, the breakdown of the offense and what it could be with the guys, I think they're going to be expected to hit the ground running, all the guys that you mentioned, but the other team has something to say about it as well. And like I said, this is a tough division. And look, even though I'm saying the schedule is probably the better schedule that the Raiders have had in a very long time, it's still a tough schedule. They still got tough teams on that schedule. Like I had the call a few weeks ago about where do you even see 8 wins from? And I mean, I could see the Raiders coming up with 8 wins, but saying everyone in the AFC West is going to win 10, that's a little rich. That's a little tough for me. But thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. It's good to hear from you. We'll close things out with a text from Mr. James from the 615 Nash Vegas. Q, my dude, it's Mr. James from the 615 Nash Vegas. I've been out of the loop the past month or so. We're starting a new business, so I haven't had a chance to listen very often. If someone has already touched on this topic, I apologize. Like I said, been out of the loop. Before I start, I went and toured the stadium for the first time for my 50th birthday a couple of weeks ago, and my gosh, was I impressed. Mark Davis suite and the white leather couches was something else. I was literally a 50-year-old man-child that could hardly contain myself and ended up taking over 200 pictures. I'm going back for week 2 Monday Night Football versus the Chargers for my first home game. I can't wait. Now, down to business. Do you think the Raiders are benefactors of the Tom Brady effect? And hear me out. Tom was the NFL golden boy for 2 decades. The dude could literally do no wrong. Do you think the love the NFL has for Tom has transitioned over to him being a minority owner of the Raiders? In my eyes, our schedule always seems to include a ridiculous amount of travel and having 3 away games in a row, playing multiple cold weather games, and so on. This year's schedule has none of that. It's awesome on mileage, not overly tough. The fact that we have 1 cold weather game is epic. If the Tom Brady effect is indeed real, I'm all for it. As much as I absolutely despise Tom as a player and a dude, he seems pretty solid. I might be way off here, but that's just my thoughts. I feel in my heart of hearts, being a Raiders fan since the mid-'80s, we were on the cusp of something special, something great even, and I can't remember the last time I was so excited and optimistic about the upcoming season. Q, you're a man among men, and you make the offseason bearable. Peace out, brother. Go Raiders. That is from our guy right there, Mr. James from the 615 Nash Vegas. First of all, congratulations on your business. That's awesome. So if you're going to miss the show, there's a good reason to miss the show, is that you got your own business up and running. So that's really cool. As far as the Tom Brady effect on the schedule, I don't know if that's anything, but the Tom Brady effect on the team is definitely real. Tom Brady, throughout the course of his career, never stood for losing, right? He was one of those guys, I reference it all the time. He hates losing more than he likes winning. Those are the kind of people I like. I like the people that hate losing despite losing, the guys that's going to keep them up at night, right? Or it's like me having a bad show. It'll keep me up at night. It'll bother me till no end, right? As opposed to, oh, that was a really good show. Cool. That's fine. I can go sleep on that one. Right? It's just what it is. I love the fact that Brady's that guy. And so nobody should think that Brady was going to be willing to put his name and be a part of a team that was going to stand for losing. So the good thing is, when Tom Brady became part minority owner, I had a lot of friends that aren't Raider fans that hit me up and was like, man, that's a good move. Finally, Mark Davis has made a good move, because he's not going to stand for losing. He's going to make sure the right people are in place. He obviously is a big reason why John Spytek's there. Obviously a big reason why Pete Carroll's there. He always said that playing Pete Carroll's teams were always so tough because they were so well prepared. It was always tough for him. He's a reason why the Raiders got an interview with Ben Johnson. Now, I know they didn't land Ben Johnson, but they were even in the conversation because of him. Again, he just has a level of credibility, street cred, winning cred, NFL cred, whatever you want to call it. He has that. He has that sway with him that he can be, he could represent like that. So I don't know if they necessarily got a break on the schedule because of Tom Brady, but I know that he definitely has a big time effect on this team moving forward, because, he's in the organization and he doesn't want to stand for any kind of losing. So thanks so much for that text. Fantastic stuff. And, let us know and update us, man, on how the business is going, and shout it out, man. We definitely want to show it some love. But thanks so much for that text, as always. Got a call from Bo in the 530. We'll get that tomorrow. Got some other texts that I want to get to. Got some tweets. We'll have more news and notes for sure. And we'll obviously have plenty of conversation here as well. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.